2525, like I keep saying, is this the beginning of a revolution in Britain? Certainly, it might look that way. I mean, these astonishing results as they come in. The big one, of course, the headline act, some might say, the Runcorn and Helsby by-election. A dramatic recount there, a long-held Labour seat, but now bringing reforms. Well, is it fifth or sixth? I don't know what you call it when you lose one and you gain one. MP to Parliament. And Sarah Pochin got in by just 6 votes. Doesn't matter the margin. The seat has turned. Greater Lincolnshire now has a new mayor, the Tory defector Andrea Jenkins. And not only did she sweep to victory, she got a majority of nearly 40,000 votes. Doncaster has been a Labour hold, but only just. Labour's Ros Jones barely clung on to the mayoralty there with 23,805 votes. Reform UK's Alexander Jones, 23,107. Even where the Labour Party have managed to keep their seats, it's been by a whisker. The West of England mayoralty, another Labour hold, but Aaron Banks for Reform UK in second by only 6,000 votes. It's not very much for a constituency of that size. Let's talk about all of this, and I'm going to keep you updated as we go along with the latest number of councillors. I can tell you right now, Reform UK, 80 councillors. That's up 80. Conservatives have lost 62. That gives them only 23. Labour Party down 14. This doesn't just look like Reform are doing well and winning some seats. It looks like an absolute bludgeoning. Let's speak to former Conservative government advisor, Mr James Price. Good morning to you, my baba. How are you? Are you sad or are you excited?
Well, as any observer of this, it's always exciting. This is our version, I suppose, of or is it transfer deadline day for people that like watching football. It's always exciting when you see these sorts of things. I've got to spare a thought for any councillor, even Socialist Labour ones, who lose their seats, because these are people who spend a lot of their time doing the kind of drudgery that keeps the country going. When there are small local issues, these are people who it's not their full-time job often, most of the time, in fact. They do other things as well, and they get paid a pittance to do these important things. And of course, whilst it's a privilege to serve, and you losing is part and parcel of it, it is always sad to see some people do it. But that means exciting new blood coming into the system as well. And I think it will be a big test of Reform's growing maturity to see how it handles suddenly having loads more elected politicians right across the country, and how well it manages to deal with that and keep people disciplined and in line, because it's not easy governing. What is it, the Hamilton musical once said, winning is easy, governing's harder?
I wouldn't know, never been to see it, but perhaps I will now. I mean, let's talk about some of the things that have probably got both parties into this mess. And the biggest one, I would suggest, I could be wrong, I've not done focus groups, but I'd imagine the small boats scandal has weighed on people's minds a lot, even though it's got naffle really to do with local elections. Local councillors can't necessarily change that. It's definitely felt at a local level. It's been, I would imagine, the mood music underpinning these elections. And 11,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel so far this year. Whatever the rhetoric that the Labour Party came out with, they're not delivering.
No, absolutely not. It's absolutely extraordinary. You had Starmer coming in with his wonderfully inspiring rhetoric, and we're going to smash the gangs, and all they're going to do is smash records, haven't they? They've stopped the Rwanda third-party detention move, which, you know, the United States is doing now with El Salvador. Other European countries are looking at it. The new government in Germany said that they'll look to do that as well. And Labour, just because the Tories did it, scrapped it. And without that disincentive, we've seen record high numbers of people. Let's just remind people what this is. These people are unlikely all to be the next William Shakespeare or Alfred Lord Tennyson or whoever you want to name, right? If they are wonderful, we've still got to find a way to house them, still got to find a way to teach them all of our ways. But the likelihood is these are overwhelmingly young fighting age men. There's already a demographic problem in there. They're almost always going to be people of a very alien culture to us who are going to, at the very least, have to enlighten about how in the United Kingdom we treat, say, women or gay people or children, because we've seen these recent arrivals hanging around outside primary schools of all places with, I'm sure, fairly ill intent. And you say it's not directly a result of these local councillors. That's true, but it is local councils who are having to do their bit of putting up with these people, of councillors having to deal with the complaints from these people, of them making local bits of England's green and pleasant land a bit less pleasant, that bit less safe, that bit less prosperous. And so I think you're exactly right that this is having an ever more corrosive impact on politics, whether local or national.
I've got to ask you something, because it's just occurred to me while speaking to you how dastardly and scheming politics is, right? I don't understand the mechanism by which people land in Dover and then get distributed around the country. I don't know whether a local authority, if they're told by whomever, the Home Office, right, you've got to house 900 randos who came on a boat, this year, whether they can say, we're not going to do that, shove off, or if they have to take them and do something with them. Because if that is the case, if they can't reject housing these people, and like I said, you might know this, I don't know the mechanism in law or legislation that determines where these people get distributed and by whose decision making. But I would imagine that if I was the Labour Party, I would think to myself, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to send all of these so-called asylum seekers, these young men of fighting age, to all of the reform-held local authorities, make sure they're in houses and hotels there to scupper reform's chances. What could reform at local level, if they take control of councils, actually do to reverse the situation of migrant hotels? Now migrants in rental accommodation, while ordinary Brits have to wait 5.5 years on average for social housing. Is there anything that they can do to stop this at local level?
It's a really, really, really good and important question. And firstly, before going into that, broadly, councils are really underpowered in terms of the powers that they have. They're kind of unevenly, I should say, distributed around the country in terms of powers. So you talk about Andrea Jenkins, just elected as this first mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, will have a different set of powers than Sadiq Khan does, or that Andy Burnham has in Manchester, or that the guys down in Bristol or whatever will have. So that hasn't been evenly spread out. But by and large, the United Kingdom is probably the most centralised major developed economy in the world when it comes to power. It's the least devolved. And so almost everything is decided from the centre of Whitehall. The biggest, most farcical one I remember under Rishi Sunak was there was a pot of money that was being distributed out from a central Whitehall department to local councils to apply for putting up chess boards in local parks. And you had to go through some crazy rigmarole just to get a tiny pot of money to put chess boards up and all these things. And something like 80% of all council spending is statutorily required by Whitehall on only sort of 3 topic areas. One is looking after these sorts of migrants. One is children with special educational needs and disabilities. They're very important, but they've got no control and discretion on this. So we've started to see ballooning costs where something like 650 quid a day per child to drive them to school in taxis, completely ludicrous sums where local councils by law are not allowed to try and make efficiencies or get a grip on this kind of spending, which is often why some of them are going bust. And so, no, they don't have huge amounts of discretion to deal with these things. And I think the last thing is, Alex, you're completely right. If I were a cynical socialist Labour person in government, I would be thinking very carefully about where exactly I'm moving all these people to. Just as Labour back under Tony Blair said, we want to rub the right's noses in multiculturalism, and rejected the offer from the EU to have a kind of break on new people arriving when the EU was enlarged 20 years ago. They said, no, just in you come. And there was great, huge population demographic changes that have caused all kinds of issues, as we know. They'll be doing the same again now. And unfortunately, the large Boris wave, as it's known, of legal immigrants have been doing that just as much as the boat people coming over as well. It's a very, very toxic mix. And what it means is that resentment and anger and frustration is boiling up right across the country. And I think that's reflecting in the results that we've seen today.
So trouble potentially on the horizon when it comes to, if we get reform-controlled councils, then being able to say we're going to shut that migrant hotel, we're not going to allow migrants to come and live in your neighbourhoods. If they're not able to stop it, they may well be held accountable. But what about when it comes to net zero? I mean, the Labour Party pushing ahead with the madness. Carry on is my feeling. You're just going to hand more and more power to reform. But is that something that they can also challenge at local level? Could a reform-led council turn around and say, we're not going to follow net zero targets, we're going to scrap the lot of it? Or is that something else where, you know, all these COPs have happened and things have been put into treaty that they also don't have any power over?
Yeah, not really, I'm afraid. I'll try and think for next time we talk of a few specific mechanisms that the clever councillors might be able to deploy. But again, by and large, all this power is hoarded in the centre by Whitehall, and Ed Miliband will know best. It's a sort of sad mockery and an inversion of obviously what happens at an international level, whereby the United Kingdom is responsible for, 1% of global emissions. And China and India are boasting about opening new coal-powered centres rather than trying to deal with net zero themselves at all. There's not huge amounts of power that councillors can have on these things. Go and look over at the United States, where when the Biden administration comes in, you see all kinds of fighting between Republican states like Texas, who wanted to keep doing things. Texas wanted to keep its southern border strong. It wanted to keep doing lots of fracking and new oil wells. Now the Trump administration has come in. Some of the blue states are trying to fight against it. And at least in there, you get what someone once called the laboratories of democracy in the states. And if it works really well in Tennessee, maybe it could work really well in New Hampshire. We don't have that properly in the UK. All we have is in Scotland, they try and do the most mad thing, most self-damaging thing possible, just to sort of spite England for no discernible reason whatsoever. So I'd love to see a lot more devolution of power, but that's only going to come when the MPs in Westminster are willing to give up some of that power and devolve it meaningfully.
I just wonder if, you know, reform-led council was told, right, there's a coachload of migrants coming your way, find houses for them. If they just turned around and went, nope, and dug their heels and said, absolutely not, we're going to block it, what would then happen?
I suspect it would be litigated in the courts. I suspect there would be the council or councillors in particular would end up being sued by central government departments, and they would be sort of foisted on them. It's not like what we saw again in the United States, where because the lefties in the Northeast were ignoring what was going on, the mayor of Texas sent literally buses loads of people who just illegally crossed over the southern border and plonked them all in New York City and plonked them all in fancy Martha's Vineyard. Now, again, I can see, as you just said, Labour trying to do that just to sort of diminish and ruin very nice parts of England. Because in a few years' time, maybe not the boat people necessarily straight away, but the legal migration, in a few years' time, these people are going to start to have their indefinite leave to remain, and then they'll be on a pathway to citizenship as well. And I suspect the left thinks that you get these millions of migrants. Who are they going to be grateful for? Probably the lefties who want to give them all of their benefits and everything. And that will just create millions new voters for socialist parties. And that's why I think the next general election, when it comes, Reform and the Conservatives need to get their act together to knock the socialists out, because otherwise it could get pretty existential for the future of Britain.
James Price, thank you ever so much. Listening to what James has to say there, I think he could do with giving Nigel a few tips and suggesting a few tricks. I wonder what would happen if a reform-led council said, no, we're not going to do as instructed. Take us to court, if you will, central government. The optics of that would be quite interesting.